The iPhone 17 has got a serious problem, and Apple's official response? You're charging it wrong. There is a whole lot of iPhone 17 drama and some new problems we've got to talk about. And also I feel like around every iPhone launch, there is always this big question of if the iPhone has hit its peak, is it boring? Is it still relevant? And if you're thinking that, you're not the only one, because there's an Apple executive who also thinks that Apple needs to kind of move on beyond the iPhone. I've got a wild story here you need to know. First though, big thanks to my friends at ESR for sponsoring this video. And second thing you need to know is that Apple buying Netflix, Hulu, even Tesla, this was all a real thing. And this Apple executive, a guy named Eddie Q, wants Apple to totally transform its business and finally move beyond the iPhone. And if that name sort of sounds familiar, this guy has played a very big role at Apple and has kind of flown under the radar for many years, while Craig Federighi and Tim Cook and John Turnus and Greg Joswiak, all those guys take the spotlight at events. Eddie Q has been an Apple executive for many years now, decades, and has been sort of one of the transforming forces into Apple getting into new era technologies for their time. For example, he was the one that pushed Apple to make the Apple online store. Who would have thought? Apple making an online website. He pushed for the creation of the iTunes store. He was instrumental in the App Store, and he has sort of been the leading force and the charge behind the new sort of services division of Apple sort of getting beyond hardware and moving more into software experiences. In fact, many really credit him for pushing Tim Cook and Apple executives to acquire Beats, which is, I think, to date, still their biggest acquisition ever. No one really understood why Apple would want to buy a headphones company, but Eddie Q understood it was the Beats streaming service, that streaming technology, that would be instrumental for a little thing called Apple Music. And despite all of the Apple Music drama that has been kind of come and gone over the years, Apple Music today is actually really successful, and it's Apple Music and Apple Pay and Apple TV Plus and these other things that make the ecosystem that is oh so illustrious and so compelling that Samsung and Google and others just can't compete with. It's really thanks to Eddie Q and his services division that Apple still has a little bit of that magic that some of their hardware might kind of be lacking. And we have heard over the years that it's been Eddie Q that has been pushing for Apple to make some big bets and big acquisitions and really transform the company. He has pushed for Apple to acquire Netflix or even buy Hulu back when there was some investments to be made there. He was even someone on board with Apple buying Tesla and really jumping into the car space. He really sees Apple as a multifaceted company. And while so many people focus on the Apple Watch and the iPhone and Macs, he sees Apple getting into more experiences, and he was one pushing hard for a Netflix acquisition and a Tesla acquisition, and Apple getting in and making these big bets and big moves in totally new industries. But for better or worse, Apple CEO Tim Cook said no. He vetoed those decisions. But Tim Cook's plan for Apple is much different than what Eddie Q has planned. And I'll come back to more of the differences in a moment, but I should mention, sort of talking about Tim Cook's plan, AirPods are a really big part of how he plans Apple's future. And I love AirPods. I'm sure I'm not the only one super excited about AirPods Pro 3, but let me tell you guys my words of wisdom, because I've lived this experience. If you drop your AirPods, two things will happen. You're gonna mess up the case, and then your AirPods will go flying out of the case. And if you're like me, you'll end up getting off of a flight with one AirPod in your pocket and the other on the other side of the country. So you wanna make sure your AirPods stay safe, secure, protected, especially if you've got new AirPods Pro 3, which is why my friends at ESR are here to help. The solution to this problem is the Cyber Flick Lock magnetic case. It still gives you that oh so satisfying click and fidgetiness of opening and closing the case, but it's got some special strong magnets and locking tech built in and an internal latch, so if the case goes flying to the floor, it's gonna remain closed, and also your bare AirPods case will remain protected as well. Not only that, but you still do have mounting points if you wanna mount this thing with a lanyard, and it's still gonna work beautifully with wireless chargers, power banks, things like that. I wireless charge these things all the time, and they work beautifully here, even in this case. And if you're looking for something a bit more modern, there's also the Orbit hybrid magnetic case as well. You're getting a nice pop of color, you're getting a nice hard shell case to keep the AirPods case secure underneath, and also some nice stronger built-in magnets to keep that AirPods case closed if it falls onto the floor. Again, I am proof that even the most careful person can drop their AirPods and lose one bud halfway across the country. Don't be like me. Protect your new AirPods, especially if you picked up a new pair, with these solutions from ESR. If you want to check them out and give your AirPods a nice protective upgrade, link is going to be right down below in the description. From all we've heard, Tim Cook doesn't really see eye to eye with Eddie Q's expansion vision. He sees Apple more focusing on the fundamentals, really focusing in on crafting the best iPhone and Mac and iPad. And I will say, to Tim Cook's credit, he has built up a great sort of supporting cast of characters and accessories that really do play nicely with the entire Apple ecosystem. For example, the Apple Watch under Tim Cook has really found its place in the market as not just a fashion piece, but like a health and fitness accessory that also is great for notifications. He has really built AirPods into a multi-billion-dollar business and has really taken it from the laughingstock of the world to being one of the most compelling, most feature-rich Apple products out there. And he's also given a lot of choice, given more pricing options for the iPhone and the iPad and the Mac. He's much more, taking the approach of slow and steady rather than shock and awe like other Apple executives might like. And for better or worse, it has really crafted Apple into a unique company. Kind of brings us to where it is today, where it's sort of doing these things and making smaller changes and still making some bigger bets, which I guess kind of ties us nicely into the iPhone 17 series that is now finally here. And there are a lot of surprises we're now getting with the launch of these phones. Some good, and obviously some bad. The general consensus from the opening launch weekend actually seems to be fairly positive. I'm not sure if it's the marketing blitz that Apple is doing or whatever else they're sort of working on behind the scenes, but many say that this seems to be one of the more enthusiastic launches Apple has had in a long time, and demand actually seems pretty good for all of the models in the lineup. In fact, we're hearing the iPhone 17 in particular seems to be selling exceptionally well. I mean, who would have thought that putting promotion on there and great cameras and offering a really great phone for a pretty good base price actually would sell well? Seems like a lot of people are taking the iPhone 17 as their upgrade this year. iPhone Air is also getting a lot of compliments as well. I think a lot of people are happy that Apple is trying something new and experimenting again. And also they're impressed with kind of the durability. After all the issues with Bendgate and all the issues of the iPhone 6 Plus, the iPhone Air, it's not, I guess, indestructible, but that titanium sort of material in there with sort of everything else that Apple has inside really makes this quite a durable phone. In fact, we're learning that the iPhone Air is actually quite a bit more durable than the 17 and 17 Pros. And that is kind of where we get into the drama of the 17 series this year, because actually 17 Air seems to be mostly drama-free, but it's the Pros that are having some bigger issues. Now, every year there seems to be some kind of issue around the iPhone launch. Antenna-gate, Bend-gate, Beauty-gate, there was Jelly-gate with the iPad mini, and this year there seems to be, I guess, Scratch-gate and also Wi-Fi-gate. A lot of users are reporting that there are some Wi-Fi issues with their phones, not even like the C1X in the iPhone Air, but even just 17 Pro and regular 17s are having issues. Seems like a software update might be coming to fix some units that are affected there. That seems to be an actually serious, real problem. And then the scratch issue also seems to be quite an interesting problem. We're learning that the aluminum casing is way more prone and susceptible to light and even sort of bigger scratches. Jerry Rig Everything did a great video showing that in particular, the camera plateau is like one of the easiest parts of the Pro Series phone to scratch, that even even a little coin in your pocket can put some serious scuffs into the top of your iPhone. But we're also learning in general, the iPhone 17 and 17 Pros seem to be scuffing way more. In fact, many people are kind of going online and posting photos of Apple Store retail units that are scuffed up like crazy and look terrible. And the issue has gotten so bad that Apple is actually being forced to respond. And the official response from Apple is, you're charging it wrong. Or I guess, more specifically, they're saying that there's some transfer between the worn MagSafe chargers in the store and the 17 series. And they're saying that, oh, it's just limited to those, everything will wipe off and it'll be just fine. But many are saying that's not exactly it. There actually does seem to be a real concern about the durability of these phones and that they do seem to scuff way more easily. In fact, I've heard some rumors that they've actually stopped using those MagSafe display units at the store because the phones were getting scuffed up so much. So we'll have to see what happens with that. I mean, I don't think anything is going to change. You might just have to sort of throw this thing into a case and that'll be the solution for that. And I'm curious for you guys watching this video, if you upgraded to an iPhone 17 or I guess an iPhone Air this year, did you upgrade? Why or why not? Have you had any issues with these phones? And just in general, what are your thoughts on the lineup this year? Do you think Apple should take a more aggressive stance like what Eddie Q wants and they should be acquiring companies and getting into new things? Do you think Tim Cook is taking the better route? Curious, let me know your thoughts down below on all this stuff. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle, and I'll see you all in the next one.